Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome back. I'm Jeannie and I'm pretty behind on my Mani by Me subscription boxes by Maniology, but as I was going through my boxes trying to catch up, this one caught my eye and I knew I had to use it immediately. Now, if you know me, you know I am a crazy cat lady. I absolutely love anything cat related, and this one I am so excited about. I just looked back and looks like this plate was from the May box, so that's how behind I am. And I actually had to end up canceling my subscription for now just because I have so many boxes that I haven't opened yet that I need to use them before I continue on. But I'm sure I'll start again because I absolutely love the Mani by Me boxes and it made me so sad to cancel it. But before I get into stamping, I do need a base, so I'm going to do dip powder nails as my base for my stamping. So I'm using my Marullo Nail Co dip liquids, and I'm just getting everything ready. And as my base color, I'm going to be using Deepest Desires from Sensations of the Eye Acrylics, and this is such a great neutral color. I love that it's like pinkish with like a mauve undertone, and it is just so beautiful, and I love it with my skin tone. I get my dips from Sensations of the Eye in their heat sealed baggies. She just recently started offering jars, but I prefer the baggies because they save a lot of room. But I can't really dip into the baggie, so I'm just going to go ahead and pour my powder into my Dipped in Chaos by Chaos Concepts, and that's going to make it easier for me to dip my nails. So this is going to be my basic dipping process because Deepest Desires is going to be a base on all 5 of my nails. In addition to that, my thumb and my pinky are going to be a little bit of an accent, and I'm going to do an additional dip into like a glitter flaky type mixture. Wait till you see it. It is absolutely gorgeous. But I'm going to kind of walk you through my basic dipping process and the steps for that. If you're interested, if you're a beginner, you want to know more about the process, keep watching this. If you're more interested in the stamping, you don't want this step-by-step for the dipping process, I'll leave chapters so that you can skip to the stamping part. I happen to have an orange wood stick next to me, so I was using it to clean up my cuticle area, but I don't really like using orange wood sticks for that, just because they're a bit thicker and I like a thinner gap. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my cuticle tool to help clean up my cuticle area and my sidewalls to make sure I don't have any excess product on my skin. Now moving on to my dipping process, I'm going to remove most of the liquid from my dip base brush. You don't want too much dip base. And then once I've removed most of that, I'm going to start with my brush about the middle point of my nail. I'm going to brush downwards towards my free edge, and then I'll work my way upwards towards my cuticle area. That ensures the most amount of liquid is at the free edge area and is not at the cuticle area, flooding it. And then once I've got an even layer of dip base on my nail, I'm going to go ahead and dip into my powder. I'm going to tap off the excess powder, and then I want to make sure that I'm cleaning around my sidewalls and cuticle area, removing any excess product, because excess product on your skin can cause lifting. If it looks a little bit wet, you can go ahead and dip again just to make sure all that dip base is absorbed. And then this dip base, it dries fairly quickly, but I'm going to go ahead and do all of my nails first before I dust off the excess powder. So I'll do that before I start with layer 2. So again, I removed most of the dip base from my brush. I'm starting with my brush about the middle point of my nail. I'm brushing downwards towards my free edge, and then I'll work my way upwards towards my cuticle area, taking my time to make sure that I'm not getting any dip base on my skin at my cuticle area. So I like to be really careful around that area. And then once I've got that on, I will go ahead and dip in the powder. I'm kind of laying my finger flat into it, tapping off the excess powder, and then cleaning up my cuticle area to make sure I'm removing any excess product. If it looks a little wet, I can go ahead and dip back in, or if I'm happy with that, I can move on to my next nail. I'm still working on trying to get better and more precise with my dip base application, because the cleaner my application is, the less cleanup, the less filing I have to do. I mean, most anything can be fixed with filing. However, if you can do a better job up front, it's less work you have to do with the filing and cleaning up. So I'm trying to get better with that. But, you know, I think, what is it, 3 years, 4 years, maybe even into dipping? I'm still working on it. So if you're newer to this, be a little forgiving. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. Like when I do regular nail polish, I happen to get nail polish on my skin all the time. So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience to be able to get it. I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it. Some days are better than others, but I'm still working at it. I went ahead and dusted off the excess powder on all my nails, and I showed you that real time. So as soon as I finished dipping my pinky, I was ready to go ahead and dust off the excess powder, and it didn't disrupt what I did with the pinky nail. So you can see kind of the dry time of the dip base. You definitely want to make sure that you're dusting off the excess powder before you go in with layer 2, because it ensures your second layer is thinner and more even, as well as you don't want to gunk up your dip base brush with all that excess powder. So make sure you're dusting it off, whether you're using a dust brush. I use like eyeshadow brushes, makeup brushes, whatever that is. You can use this scrub brush, whatever you prefer, but make sure you're removing that before you go in with layer 2. So I'm going ahead, starting in with layer 2 on my thumb. I'm making sure that I'm cleaning up my cuticle area because I don't want any excess product on my skin. And then if it's still a little bit wet, I can just let it dry, or I like to just dip in again into the powder so all that dip base is fully absorbed. I do like to take my time on my second layer because generally I like to keep it at 2 layers each on my nails. I don't like to do more than that most times. So if I've missed any spots on my first layer, if my dip base dried a little too quickly on me, for my second layer, I want to make sure that I'm covering that all, that I'm getting coverage on my entire nail. So I still remove most of the liquid from my dip base brush because I don't want too much liquid. I start with the brush about the middle point of my nail, maybe a little bit higher, but never at my cuticle area. I brush downwards towards my free edge, and then I'll work my way upwards towards my cuticle area. I will dip into the powder. Once I dip into the powder, I'm going to tap off the excess, and then making sure I'm cleaning up my cuticle area after each nail as well while the dip base is still wet. That helps, make it a cleaner cuticle line, as well as removes any excess product from your skin. If you're newer to dipping and you find that your dip powder is looking lumpy and bumpy, don't panic. It's nothing that can't be fixed without some filing and buffing, but there are some tips and tricks to get it to be less lumpy and bumpy, so you have to do less filing and buffing. So first thing I want to say is make sure that your dip-based layers are super thin. You don't want too much liquid. You want it as thin as possible, making sure to cover your entire nail. And then you may want to consider not dipping in. Like, I prefer to dip into my powder, but if you're finding your dip is looking lumpy and bumpy, it may be better to pour over because that dip base is wet. So if you're dipping too hard into the powder, if that makes sense, it could displace that liquid and it could create like wrinkling. So that could be some of your issues as well. So maybe try pouring over your powder. So I like to use my containers from Chaos Concepts. This is the Dipp'd in Chaos that I'm using. They've also got the Chaos Gemerald, which was one of my favorites as well. And I pour into there. If you don't have one of those, you can always use a cupcake liner. It's just not as eco-friendly because they're disposable and they're not reusable. But, pour over if you want to. And then make sure your dip powder is fully dry before you go in and try to dust off the excess powder. And you may want to consider using a stiff scrub brush or an old toothbrush rather than using like a fluffy brush, just to remove more of the excess powder. Before I dip my thumb and my pinky into that glitter mixture, I want to cap the rest of my nails in clear because they're going to remain solid nails and I don't want them contaminated with a glitter. So I'm using my clear from Double Dipped, which is my favorite clear, as you can tell by the giant jug of it. When I'm applying my dip base, I do use a little more dip base than normal. I still don't want to flood my cuticles, but I do use a little more dip base because I want to make sure that clear is fully absorbed into that dip base. So once I've got that dip base on, I'm going to dip into the clear. Sometimes I'll pat down just to make extra sure that it's absorbing into that dip base. It really depends. Most times I do that more consistently when I'm working with a glitter because I want to make sure that clear is getting in between the nooks and crannies of the glitter. For the solid, especially like a neutral color like this, it's not as important. I guess it's really just a matter of personal preference. So the reason I go ahead and do this is because I want to activate my nails, because any stray glitters will not stick to activated nails, so I'm not going to contaminate these solid nails. But I don't want to activate the solid nails and then cap and clear and then activate again, because that's just unnecessary steps. So I'm going to go ahead and cap and clear. I want to dust off the excess powder once the clear is fully dry, but instead of just using a regular dust brush, I want to make sure that I'm scrubbing off the excess clear using a stiff scrub brush. So this is going to remove the excess clear and make sure that your clear layer isn't grainy or cloudy, but definitely make sure before you start scrubbing that your dip base is fully dry. Once I've got all the excess clear powder scrubbed off, I'm going to go ahead and activate those nails. So they're going to sit and just wait until I'm ready to do my filing and buffing once I'm done with my glitter dips. The other benefit of doing it this way is it takes about 2 minutes or so for your activator to harden your dip powder. So by the time I'm done dipping my thumb and my pinky in the glitter, I'm ready to go ahead and file and buff these 3 nails that I went ahead and activated, while my thumb and my pinky are going ahead and setting with the activator and hardening. So I don't have to wait to do all my nails. I can start with these 3 nails that are activated, and by the time I'm filing and buffing those, I can go ahead and file my thumb and pinky, so it just saves a little bit of time. So here's the glitter I'm going to use. It's also from Sensations of the Eye. I'm going ahead and pouring it into my Dipp'd in Chaos. This is called Panty Dropper, which the name is hilarious. But this glitter, oh my gosh, it is so, so gorgeous. I only have to do 1 dip of this, and even with that base layer, I feel like the base layer wasn't needed because it is such good coverage. And it's just got like this beautiful mix of like iridescent glitters. It's got some shards in there. It is just, I mean, pictures and video just don't do this glitter justice. I also forgot to mention, I do have a discount code with Sensations of the Eye. If there's something that interests you, you can use code Genie15. I believe that's the code. I'll leave it down below in the description just in case, but it can save you 15% off your order. It is a one-time use code, but if you haven't used it before, definitely use it and save some money. But seriously, just look at this glitter dip. It is 1 dip. So I went ahead and laid my finger flat in, and that way I picked up more of the pieces. But it is just amazing coverage, and it is just so beautiful. After I dip in, I just like to pat down to make sure that all the pieces are laying flat, because if they're kind of sticking up, I could file through them. So I just want to make sure everything's laying as flat as possible before my dip base dries. I went ahead and capped those nails in clear, activated and filed and buffed off camera. So here's how my nails are looking. I have to say these powders were super smooth. It didn't take much filing and buffing at all. It was more just cleaning up my shape a little bit and then a quick buff on top. So now we're going to get into the stamping. So I was talking about, this is from the May Mani by Me box. These are the 2 polishes that came in the box. I'm not sure whether I'm going to use them or not. I pulled out a bunch of polishes because I wasn't sure what color I was going to use, but I definitely knew what plate I was going to use. So the Maniology plates do come with a protective layer, so that blue film, you do need to remove it before you start stamping. Some companies have a clear protective layer, but I haven't found a stamping plate that doesn't have a layer. So even if you don't see it, make sure that you're looking for it, that you remove it, or else you're not going to be able to pick up any of your images. So I'm just making sure I'm getting everything ready. So I have my jelly stamper and my scraper card, because stamping goes fairly quickly, because stamping polishes dry fairly quickly. So because I'm doing this on dip powder nails, if I move quick, I can stamp directly on it. But if I'm a little bit slower, if I'm doing reverse stamping, I will need a tacky layer. But I'm going to start off by doing just regular stamping, and I'm going to do it without a tacky layer. So this is the color I'm using. I'm going to make sure that I shake it really well because I don't know how long I've had it, just because the polish can settle. So I'm just applying a generous amount over the image I want. I'm scraping the excess polish at a 45-degree angle, and then I'm going to roll my stamper to pick up that image. If there's any excess image or other images on there, I want to make sure that I'm removing it, and then once I've removed it, I'll figure out where I want to place it on the nail. Once I've got the placement right, I'm going to press down, and that's going to transfer the image from my stamper onto my nail. So you can see here, it transferred without an issue because I did it fairly quickly. If the polish were to dry on me, it would not stick to my nail, and that's when I need the sticky base coat. So I'm just taking a little bit of acetone and this cotton grabber, and I'm making sure to clean off my plate, clean off the excess polish, because I don't want it to impact the next image that I'm going to do. I also made sure to clean off my jelly stamper from any of that excess polish that's on there. So I just used a lint roller. I find that the easiest. You can also use some Scotch tape if you don't have a lint roller, but make sure you're removing that excess polish. So I'm picking out the color I want to use for my next design. So I chose this little bit of a darker gray. I want to make sure to give it a good shake to make sure that the, I forgot about that, the lid flew off, and I had a mini heart attack because I thought I put polish all over myself, but it was just the cap to the lid. Anyway, I applied a generous amount of polish to the image that I want to pick up. I scraped it at a 45-degree angle, and then I rolled my stamper to pick up that image. The one thing I learned fairly quickly when I was new to stamping is you don't want to press too hard. And it seems counterintuitive because you feel like you're not picking up the image, you need to press harder, but that actually makes it worse. So make sure you're just rolling your stamper onto the image lightly, that you're not pressing too hard, because if you press too hard, you're not going to pick up that image. I'm going to do a little bit of reverse stamping on this last nail, so I want to walk you through the process. The first part's going to remain the same for picking up the image. So I applied my black polish, I scraped off the excess polish, I'm picking up the image with my stamper. I want that to fully dry on my stamper, so I wait about 20-30 seconds, and then once that's dry, I'm going to take this pink, which is Blossom, and I want to use somewhere to pick it up, so I'm just going to apply a little bit of that to the plate, just so I can pick it up using my orange wood stick. So I'm just using the pointy end of that. I'm picking up some of that polish, and then I want to fill in the nose of that image with that pink. And so I'm being really careful. I'm putting excess polish on my orange wood stick because I don't want to really touch the lines that are already there, or else that could pick up part of that image. It could pick up the black lines. So I just want to be really careful. And then there's that little tongue there that I want to make pink as well. So I just want to fill that in. I'll turn the stamper upside down. I'll check how I like that. If I need a little bit more filling, I'll make sure that I'm filling that in a little bit more, just to make sure I've got everything filled in the way I want it. So make sure you're constantly checking to see how you want it. And then you want to let that fully dry. So again, about 20-30 seconds, and then once that's fully dry, you're not going to be able to transfer the image onto your nail. So I'm using my sticky base coat from Maniology, and I'm applying a layer of that to my thumb because that's where the image is going to go. I'm going to let that dry down for about 10-15 seconds. I don't want it completely dry. I just want it to dry down into like a tacky state rather than being fully wet. And then once it starts looking a little bit matte, gets a little bit tacky, that's when I can apply the image to my nail, and it's going to be the same way of I'm going to figure out where I want to place it with my jelly stamper. And once I'm happy with that placement, I'm going to press down to transfer that image from the stamper onto my nail. I'm going to be using Dipp'd top coat, so I want to make sure that I'm protecting my stamping image because activator would smear the polish. So in order to protect my images, I'm applying a layer of no smudge top coat. This one is from Maniology as well. So I'm applying a generous layer of that to all my nails. I'm going to let that dry for probably about a minute just to make sure it's fully dry before I go in with my activator. Once the smudge-free top coat is fully dry, I'm going to go ahead and apply one final layer of activator. Dipp'd top coat does need activator in order to dry. So because I have the smudge-free top coat on, I'm kind of floating on the activator. I don't want to drag the brush through the top coat because that could displace it and affect my stamping image. So I just want to be very careful when I'm applying the activator. And then once the activator is dried for a full 2 minutes, I'm going to go in with my first layer of Dipp'd top coat. I'm applying it in 2 to 3 swipes on each nail. I want to make sure to be fairly quick about it. In between each nail, I'm making sure to wipe my brush on a lint-free wipe to remove any of that excess activator. And then by the time I'm done with my 5th nail, I'm ready to go ahead and go in with my second layer of Dipp'd top coat because you do need 2 layers for a maximum amount of shine. For my second layer, I'm making sure that I've got my nail fully covered. I also want to make sure that I'm capping my free edge. And I also like to wipe my brush on a lint-free wipe in between each nail as well for my second layer. Technically, you don't have to, but I like to just in case. As always, I'm going to finish off my mani by rehydrating my cuticles with my Scales of a Mermaid cuticle oil. And what better scent to use than Champ? So I'm just making sure I'm applying a liberal amount of this to my cuticle area as well as underneath my nails. I love to lather myself in cuticle oil after I do a mani because my skin is extra dry because I've dehydrated. I'm using isopropyl alcohol, so I want to make sure that I'm rehydrating my skin, plumping it back up. So that pretty much wraps up today's video. I just wanted to do a quick fun mani, and how cute is this stamping plate? I am so glad I used it. It is just so adorable, and this glitter panty dropper, oh my goodness, it is so, so beautiful. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. It lets me know to continue creating content like this, and it also helps YouTube recommend me to others, which helps grow my channel. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I upload content every Monday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.